So this is a quick tutorial on using Ripple whips, specifically the zoom category or zoom theme, these 4 templates right here. These are the simplest ones and actually some of my favorite. My favorite one here is push in. So I'll just add it to these 2 clips here. The default duration is 2 seconds, but if you don't have enough media, it will be as short as the extra media that you have that allows for it. What I mean by that, if I double click on this clip, we can see there's just a little bit of media available on this flower here, so we're not getting the full 2 seconds. In fact, when I add it and press Control D, we can see it's 15 frames long. Frequently, these work great when they're shorter anyway. So if I play through it, we have a quick push in and works just like that. Super easy. Now, one thing I like to do to enhance how this works is to add some motion to the clips themselves. So we have this eye blinking, and then we push into the flower. To make it a little more dynamic, I can enable the crop tool, select Ken Burns, and now we have a push in to the eye. I'll hold down the Option key while dragging in to really come closer to the eye. Click Done. And now we start with a push into the eye and then fly right into it further. We can do the same thing on the next shot here. Crop tool, Ken Burns, and let's also switch this so it starts wide and ends closer. Again, I'll hold down the Option key and zoom in a little tighter. Click Done and play through that. So quick and easy. What really makes this transition the most effective is the content that you're moving between. In this case, these objects are both centered and they work quite well. In this shot over here, I've got these 2 dogs, and the first dog is really not centered. So a couple things about that and working with stills as well. I'll select this edit point and I'll double click push in. You can see it's longer here. If I select it and press Control D, it's a full 2 seconds long. Let's play through it. So it doesn't look great because of these black bars on the images. Now, one way to take care of that when you're working with stills that have an aspect ratio that doesn't match your project is in the video inspector, change the spatial conform to fill. And they'll both fill. And now we can play through. And it looks good. The other thing we can do with this particular transition, push in, is even though it doesn't have any parameters to adjust in the inspector, there is an on-screen control. So what I like to do is move the playhead to the middle of the transition, hit the back arrow to go to the outgoing clip, last frame of it, and we can adjust the framing of that. Be closer to his eye. You want to step through it to make sure you don't end up revealing any black on the top of the clip. So you have to move it up a little bit there to step through it. That looks pretty good. So now, as we zoom in, we move in towards the subject we're interested in before we go to the next shot. Another thing we can do here, just like we did with the video, is I'll turn that spatial conform back to fit and instead use Ken Burns on each of these clips. So I'll turn on Ken Burns, and you can see we've already got something set up there. And I'll turn on Ken Burns for this shot as well. Done. So instead of filling, we have movement on each shot before the transition starts and after it completes. The pull-out transition works very much like push-in, except in reverse. I'll drag it on top of the existing one to replace it and play through. The thing to notice about pulling out is that it first pushes in a little bit before pulling out, and you can determine where it pushes in, again, with this on-screen control. The thing to be a little bit careful about is as it pushes in, any edges are replicated, and if it's moving slowly, you'll catch that. Usually it's moving quickly and you won't notice it. But what you can do is speed up the transition and change exactly where the on-screen control is. The on-screen control does not appear during the second half of the transition. It only appears when your playhead is to the left of the middle of that transition. Now push in and pull out with spin, simply add some spin to it. A couple little things about that though. Let's use push in spin. So there are a couple parameters you can use here. One thing I would do is speed it up so that you cover the replicated parts pretty quickly. And then depending on your subject matter, you can adjust the starting framing. And you also have some parameters you can adjust in the transition inspector. The amount of rotation can go up to 180. If you go over 180, it will reverse. So if you want it to spin the other way, you can just put a negative amount in and it'll spin the other way. And then you can add more blur if you want to get rid of some of the replicated edges there. And let's play through that. There we go, beautiful. Pull out spin, very similar. Let's throw it on there. And again, we push it a little bit and then we back up. The pull-out transition also offers a fade amount in order to blend these better together as you move from one to the next. By the default, it's set to 30 frames. Generally, I wouldn't go above 60. If I set it to 0, you'll see there's just a quick cut between the two. But what we can do is crank that up a little bit and have more of a fade between the two as we move from one shot to the next. And just like the push-in spin, you can adjust the amount of rotation up to 180 degrees in either direction and the blur amount. And that's it for the zoom transitions in Ripple Whips.